Hi, my name's Jackie and I'm a maths teacher, and I'm going to talk through typical level 2 question on measurement. Now I say typical, what we have to remember is that all questions will be slightly different and use a different number of maths skills. The key thing is to read it very carefully and make sure you've got an idea about what the problem's trying to achieve. And don't think of it mathematically. Try and think of it as an everyday problem and what you want to solve. Okay, so let's read it carefully. Georgie is going to plaster this wall. Here is a scale diagram of the wall. And then we have a picture of the wall with the scale underneath. And another little diagram to show us that the grey area is the wall, and there's clearly a door within this wall. And then it goes on to say the door is 2 meters by 80 centimeters. Plaster comes in 7.5 kilogram bags. 7.5 kilograms of plaster covers 3 meters squared of wall. Georgie thinks 4 bags of plaster will be enough to plaster the wall. Is Georgie correct? Show why you think this. Okay, so there's lots of information there, but the key thing is we are trying to cover this wall in plaster and see how much plaster is needed. Now looking at this and thinking logically, if you were plastering that wall, you certainly wouldn't want to cover the door, so we have to keep that in mind. Now, let's see what else there is here. So we know that this is a scale drawing, so we have to be familiar with scale and know what that entails. Let's underline that. I think underlining some key points will be very helpful. So this scale 1 to 50 is telling us that our drawing is a scaled down model of the real thing, and the real thing would be 50 times bigger than what we have here as the drawing. 1 to 50. For every unit we use, the real thing is 50 times bigger. Okay. The next thing is that it gives us the measurements of the door, and this is the actual measurements, not on our drawing, clearly because it says 2 meters. But the other thing that should stand out is that the door measurements are giving you 1 in meter, 1 in centimeters. And we don't like that. We want them both in the same unit. If I read on, when it's giving us the coverage of the wall and it says 3 meters squared, so here I could think, well, we're looking at area and it's in meters. So I'm going to come back here and think, well, I want to change this to meters so that I'm working in 1 unit throughout for the actual wall. So 80 centimeters, we need to divide by 100, and that will give us 0.8 meters. And if you want to make logical sense of that, if you know that 100 centimeters is 1 meter, then 80 is just going to be a bit less, so 0.8 makes sense. Good, so that's our first job done. Now, try not to let this problem overwhelm you or any of these. Just break it down bit by bit. Now, if we're going to look at actual measurements, we need to know what this is and what this is on our scale drawing so we can scale it up. But they haven't been given. So we have to assume that we need to measure them. If they're not given to you, then you need to measure them. Never work on an estimate unless it tells you to. So we need to get a ruler out. Now I've made this picture much bigger so you can all see it clearly. But if you took out your ruler and measured it, what you should find is that the height of the wall would equal 5 centimeters, and the length of the wall is 9 centimetres. So if there isn't measurements given, then you should know that you have to measure it yourself. Okay, so now we're making some progress. Now we have the measurements of our scaled down wall and we know what the scale is. So once we've measured it, I think we need to work out what the actual wall size is. So we've measured and now we want to work out actual. Let's put actual dimensions. So we need to multiply by 50. So we're going to say 9 times 50, that's our length of wall, will give us 450 centimetres. And then 5 times 50 is 250 centimetres. And that is the height of our wall. Now, as I already said, we want to try and make everything in the same unit, and we're looking for an answer in metres. So the next stage that I'm going to do is change those into metres. So 450 divided by 100 is going to give us 4.5 metres. And let's put it by the side. So then we've got 250 divided by 100 gives us 2.5 metres. Now at every stage of this, you can stop, you can pause it and make some notes. And I would strongly advise that you do that so that you're clear in your mind what's going on here. Okay, let's do a quick calculation because we now want to find out the area of this room, of this wall. So we want the area. So we can do 4.5 times 2.5, and that is going to give us an area of 11.25. And don't forget, it's an area, so we want meters squared. Good, so we're making some good progress. We now know the actual area of this space. Now, here's where we need to use a bit of logic. We've been given the actual measurements of the door, and clearly we don't want to plaster over the door. So we're now I'm gonna put area wall, because I think what we need to do next is work out the area of the door, and then we're going to subtract that from the overall area, because we don't want to plaster over the door. So we've got 2 multiplied by 0.8, that's its height by its width, and that will give us 1.6 meters squared. Okay, so let's deduct that because we don't want to cover it. 11.25, there's our wall. We're going to deduct the area given for our door. Let's do another calculation. Throughout this, you can use a calculator, and I would suggest that you do so that your focus is on what needs to be done in terms of solving the problem. So we have now arrived at the area of the wall that needs to be covered. We're almost there. The plaster covers 3 meters, so we need to divide that by 3 to see how many of those bags we need. 9.65 divided by 3 gives us 3.216. So we need 4 bags. And Georgie is correct. And there we have it.